Hey everybody, I'll get to another 50s monster flick in just a second, but before I do, I want to say thanks once again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. That's right, Squarespace, a leader in the web design industry for over 20 years. Whether you want to show off your interests, start a side hustle, or finally dive headfirst into that new business, Squarespace makes web design easy. Using their AI-powered website builder, you can make your own fully functional professional site. Just answer some simple questions about your personality and industry, and Design Intelligence will handle the rest, creating a completely customized site loaded with all the features you need. And if you change your mind and want to make some changes, Squarespace's Fluid Engine allows you to easily drag and drop elements, all without doing any coding. Plus, if you're trying to sell some products, whether they're handmade or digital, Squarespace has e-commerce tools built right in, as well as an intuitive inventory management system. So if you're somebody who wants to join the thousands of other people who've used Squarespace to make their dreams a reality, just go to squarespace.com/BrandonTenold or click the link in the description and sign up for your free trial. Then, when you're confident your site's ready for launch, use the promo code BrandonTenold for 10% off your first purchase. Alright, let's get into it. Well, I already did a 1950s monster flick about a giant lady, so now it's time to do one about a giant guy. And this one actually came out first, proving that dudes rock, even when it comes to schlocky monster flicks. The Amazing Colossal Man is a 1957 monster movie from producer-director Bert I. Gordon, aka Mr. Big. And he didn't get that name just because of his initials. In a career spanning 60 years, Gordon specialized in movies about big things going on a rampage before his death in 2023 at the age of 100. Damn, even the guy's lifespan had to be big. I've already covered one of Gordon's 70s movies, The Food of the Gods, but he was best known for his 1950s monster flicks, and The Amazing Colossal Man is arguably his most famous movie. So it's kind of strange that, to my knowledge, it's never gotten an official high-def release. This was the best copy of it that I could find. Even weirder, the movie's sequel, War of the Colossal Beast, does have a Blu-ray release. Well, regardless, it doesn't seem to be getting one anytime soon, so I guess I'm stuck with what I have. I already did Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, so sure, let's do a movie where Lex Luthor with a diaper fetish goes on a rampage. So here is The Amazing Colossal Man. So it begins just like you'd think a 50s monster flick would, with military stock footage and narration.
The time is 2:45 a.m., 2 hours and 15 minutes before time zero.
It's 2 hours and 15 minutes before 5 a.m. Got it. As you may have guessed, the military is conducting a test for a new atomic bomb. Well, nice to see the soldiers are wearing dark glasses. Safety first, after all. There's a bit of a problem, though. The bomb doesn't go off when it's supposed to. Well, maybe he was confused by the whole time zero thing.
Sir, can't we leave? Can't we get out of here?
No, Sergeant. You've got to wait until the chain reaction dampens or reaches a point of explosion.
Can we smoke, sir?
Of course you can smoke. It's the 50s. Gotta follow your doctor's orders. The military guy in charge is Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Manning, who notices a plane flying into the test site.
Losing altitude fast. He's going down.
Don't worry about it. I'm sure Buddy Holly will be fine. Oops, never mind. I was wrong. Colonel Manning runs across the test site to try and save the pilot, which is apparently taking place in the Phantom Zone. Congratulations, Glenn, you're now the Incredible Hulk. Okay, he just gets badly burned. But to further the Marvel connection, this movie does have a Thor in it. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to the guy in the plane...
It was quite a mess when they got to him. Couldn't even find the plane or the pilot he was trying to save.
And it's never mentioned again after this, so guess that's the end of that mystery. Understandably, Glenn's fiancée Carol has taken this a little hard, but thankfully a local reporter is there to console her.
Why did this have to happen to him?
Things like this just happen. There doesn't have to be a reason.
Yeah, guys get caught in nuclear explosions all the time. My uncle was at Bikini Atoll and turned into the Incredible Melting Man. It's no big deal. Good news, Glenn's alive. Bad news, at the Army Halloween party, he can either go as a mummy or Dark Man.
Are you Carol?
Your name was the only word he spoke.
Well, that and morphine. He is in a lot of pain. Remarkably, though, Glenn makes a full recovery. Well, almost full. They weren't able to save his hair, and it's going to be decades before Propecia comes on the market. They want to know how Glenn survived, but for some reason, the guy who invented the bomb doesn't seem to think anything strange is going on.
A man survives an explosion, a plutonium explosion. And then, for some reason or other, his skin heals more rapidly than usual. What is the mystery, gentlemen?
This is the guy who said there's no connection between lead paint and kids licking windows, isn't it?
When a man suffers over a 95% body burn and less than a day later looks normal, I'd say there was a mystery.
Well, there isn't, okay? Just like those giant ants from the previous test. They were there before the explosion, you hear me? Before! And hey, it's a 50s movie, so let's kill some screen time with nuke stock footage and scenes we just watched.
The fact that Glenn Manning lived after the blast leaves only one conclusion. Something out there is beyond the limits of our knowledge.
So... aliens? Speaking of killing screen time, there's a long sequence where Carol goes to see him only to find out he's not at the hospital anymore, and she has to track him down to a secret military facility he's been taken to. This part's trying to build some sense of mystery leading up to a shocking reveal, but it would have a lot more impact if the movie's title and poster didn't already give it away. Oh my god, my fiance's colossal!
There were many reasons why we didn't let you in on Colonel Manning's condition, Miss Forrest.
First of all, we didn't want you to come down with a terminal case of the vapors. Wait a minute, science props. Nah, this is gonna be more talky exposition, isn't it?
The moment, he's 18 feet tall. Tomorrow, he'll be 26 feet. The next day, 35, maybe 40, and the next day...
But you've got to stop it.
Yes, thank you. He's getting bigger. You don't have to keep going. Of course, that's not going to stop the doc here from explaining the process in excruciating detail.
Now, as you probably already know, the body is like a factory. It's continually producing new cells to replace the old skin cells, grow new skin cells, and so on. Throughout the body, the broken bone shown in this X-ray became the healed bone shown in this X-ray by means of bone cell growth. A cut. Say in your hand.
I get it, he's growing. You can stop with the high school science lesson. They've got to find a way to stop Glenn's growth before the doc here explains how fingernails grow back after you trim them.
And if you can't?
Then he'll keep growing until he becomes colossal, possibly humongous or even gargantuan. And hey, thought the science lessons were the only way they could kill screen time? We also get some flashbacks, which I'm guessing were included so the actor playing Glenn didn't have to be bald for the entire movie. This also lets us learn more about him. For example, he served in the Korean War as part of Stock Footage Company. This Korean War flashback really comes out of left field, but I will say one thing about it. It's surprisingly violent for 1957. Wait, now he's flashing back to the beginning of the movie? It was less than half an hour ago, I remember. This movie is only 80 minutes long, and it still feels really padded. I'm just waiting for the guys from Things to show up and start eating white bread sandwiches with them. Well, Glenn just woke up and discovered he's a giant, and he makes another shocking discovery. Hey, relax, Glenn. It's okay for white guys to be bald. I mean, in a couple decades, Bruce Willis will even make it kinda cool. You're just ahead of the curve, that's all. Alright, as far as the giant effects go, they're not top of the line for the 50s. It's mostly the actor using small props. But so far, they're better than something like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, where most of the time the giant effects were so transparent they seem like ghosts. I'm just saying, some of the process shots here aren't terrible for 1957. This also takes place near Las Vegas, so I'm wondering if Glenn's gonna escape and fight Vegas Vic. There's some in-jokes in here too, like a reporter named H. Wells, clearly a reference to Jules Verne. Well, time to get back to more science-y stuff. They're trying to find the secret to Glenn's gigantism, but I don't know about using rabbits.
Let's give him double the amount.
No, don't do that. That's how you end up with Night of the Lepus. Meanwhile, Glenn and Carol are trying to maintain their relationship, although it is hard, not just because of his size, but because they're clearly not in the same scene together.
I shouldn't what? Talk about it, think about it. Everything reminds me of what happened.
Yeah, and the flashbacks don't help either.
You know what they wrote about me in the college yearbook?
Most likely to become amazing and colossal?
The man most likely to reach the top.
Well, that's what you get for going to on-the-nose university. And there's more side effects to Glenn's condition than just his growth.
I just don't want to grow anymore. I don't want to grow anymore!
Matt!
Alright, well, Glenn may be getting taller, but his temper's getting shorter. Look, I know this kinda sucks, Glenn, but look on the bright side. You could always audition to be the friendly giant. You got the little chairs and everything. You just gotta practice saying, look up, way up. In the meantime, though, let's have him explain how his clothes work.
Who else but a clown would have an expandable sarong like this, you know? It's adjustable. I can grow to be 100 feet tall, and I don't need a change of wardrobe.
That's good, sir. I really don't want to see your amazing colossal wang. And if you're still not sure what movie you're watching...
Why don't you make me up a sign saying, see the amazing colossal man?
Title drop. You know, I think Glenn might be starting to lose it here.
I think you're the one that's different. I'm not growing. You're shrinking.
Come on, Glenn. You're still big. It's the pictures that got small. Looks like it's time to pad things out with more science talk. And here's where we get the most infamous part of the movie. Get a load of this.
Well, today we've learned that this theory does not apply to Glenn's heart. It is growing, but at a much slower rate. Now, the reason for this is rather technical, Carol, but to give you a simplified layman's explanation, it might be explained that since the heart is made up of a single cell...
So by technical, do you mean complete bullshit? So, yeah, turns out Glenn's heart isn't growing as fast as the rest of them due to it being made of a single cell. Apparently.
No wonder he's always complaining about those sharp pains in his chest.
Well, the decades of smoking and sitting around in his tent all day probably also isn't helping with that.
His heart won't be able to carry the load any longer. He'll die.
How will it happen?
His mind will go first.
You see, the human brain is made out of cheese. I think. I'm not actually a doctor.
Why is this horrible thing happening?
What do you mean, why is it happening? Didn't you hear the guy at the beginning?
Things like this just happen. There doesn't have to be a reason.
The doctors are busy trying to find a cure, but considering their medical knowledge, I don't have much hope.
How tall do you suppose I'll grow? 100 feet? Maybe 1,000?
Nah, the budget's not big enough for that. Even worse, Glenn seems to be getting angrier by the second.
Please, is there anything I can do?
Yes! Get out! Leave me alone!
Alright, to be fair, a guy drinking and then yelling at his wife wasn't that uncommon in the 1950s. Good news, though, the scientists have made a breakthrough and can make Glenn stop growing.
Inject sulfhydryl compounds into the bone marrow.
Exactly. The thing that fooled us was we were looking for some unknown quantity in the plutonium radiation, while all the time it was acting to a degree the same as a hydrogen exposure.
Sure, sounds science-y to me. Whoa, this is a switch. A Bert I. Gordon movie with tiny animals. There's one problem, though. Glenn's split. Alright, well, a huge bald guy in a diaper shouldn't be too hard to find, right?
You see anything?
No!
A giant man in a desert? He could be anywhere. Seriously, how are they not able to find him?
He's probably been moving back and forth in an aimless pattern.
Again, it still shouldn't be that hard to spot him.
I'll never understand why someone hasn't reported seeing him.
I know, it doesn't make any sense. Especially with Glenn just sitting in the middle of the road.
Not another drop, Alf. Not another drop as long as I live, so help me.
From now on, it's PCP only. You expect to see crazy shit on that. While they continue looking for Glenn, the doc insists Carol leave, 'cause... drama, I guess? I don't know.
I've already wired Washington for permission to lift security restrictions.
You had no right to do a thing like that. Don't you have any heart?
Well, sure, but it's only one cell, remember? Okay, there's only 15 minutes left, which means we now get to an exciting climax. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's more filler.
And as closely as Dr. Lindstrom and Dr. Calder can estimate, Glenn Manning should weigh about 18,000 pounds.
Now, I don't anticipate any trouble whatsoever in...
Well, they still haven't found him, but at least they got his cure ready.
Was such a large hypodermic needle necessary?
No, but you gotta admit, it is pretty funny. We finally get to Glenn's Rampage, if you could call it that. It's mostly just him slowly walking behind various landmarks in Las Vegas. The closest he gets to rampaging is when he thinks about putting on this giant crown, then doesn't do it and just puts it back. Oh, and he also becomes the amazing colossal peeper. The effects also take a bit of a nosedive here, with Glenn looking a lot more transparent, although it's still a lot better than in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, and they don't just repeat the same shot of him walking over and over like that movie did. Speaking of which, if things don't work out with Carol, you could always take a shot with Allison Hayes. You could even give her this shoe as a gift. Oh, and remember when I said Glenn was gonna fight Vegas Vic? He kinda does that in the movie. Here's a bit of trivia for you. Originally, Roger Corman was supposed to direct this movie, with a script by Little Shop of Horrors screenwriter Charles B. Griffith and Dick Miller in the title role. This version of the movie was going to be a lot more comedic and satirical, similar to Corman's A Bucket of Blood, with Dick Miller doing stuff like roasting whales on a spit over an open volcano. Corman eventually dropped out, and Griffith left soon after when he clashed with Gordon's more serious take on the material. And I gotta say, I really wish we got that version of the movie. Having Corman and Griffith make a satirical parody of 50s giant monster flicks sounds like it could have been a lot of fun, and might have even topped Little Shop of Horrors. Here, with how seriously Gordon takes everything, stuff like trying to cure Glenn with a giant hypodermic needle just comes off as unintentionally funny. And speaking of which... okay, that's pretty funny. And that's even funnier. Alright, time for Glenn to pick up Carol and do his best King Kong impression. But since there's less tall buildings in Las Vegas, we'll just have to go to the top of Hoover Dam. There's really not a whole lot to this climax. The army asks Glenn to put Carol down, he does, and then they open fire on him. Oh, and you know how I've said that so far the effects have been better than in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman? Yeah, you know what? That effect was pretty bad. And that's the end. It's pretty common for 50s monster flicks to have abrupt endings, but this one is really abrupt. I mentioned that this is probably Bert I. Gordon's most famous movie, but does it deserve to be? The title and poster are enough to make it famous, and it has been referenced a few times since it came out, but the actual movie doesn't really live up to it. It's also common for 50s movies to include a lot of science-y filler scenes, but even by those standards, there is a lot here, especially for a movie that's this short. Also, while there are some unintentionally funny moments, there's not nearly as much to laugh at here as something like Plan 9 from Outer Space. Actor Glenn Langan, who plays Glenn, tries his best to give the character some sympathy, but even he can't overcome the goofiness of the premise. Like I said, if this had been a satirical comedy like Roger Corman originally intended, I think it would be a lot more fondly remembered. As it stands, this isn't among the worst 50s monster flicks, but it's a long way from one of the best. But it did get a sequel, which is more than a lot of 50s monster flicks, so I guess it's got that going for it. I think I'll wait a bit to do that one, though. Well, that's all for now. Until next time.
What'd you expect? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs?